So it's been a while since I've posted, and I have had some really good reasons why I haven't. Right off the bat, though, if you find my voice funky today, it's because I am still recovering from these two lower wisdom teeth extractions that I did right around holiday time. I'm still healing from it. It's been a slightly more complicated recovery, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. There are a few updates. So I think the last I must have posted was around October, maybe September. I don't even remember. It's been, 3 or 4 months since I posted. And I do have a backlog of a lot of videos where I can edit and put it out there, even right now. But I feel like there has to be some flow and some cadence and some sort of a theme to how I'm posting what. So, for example, if I'm doing a trip down the memory lane series, then I want to be able to upload a few together and plan it rather than just haphazardly keep posting and moving on. And I think that's also a barrier in my life. I tend to plan and strategize, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, which ends up coming in the way of action. But more importantly, one of the reasons why I wasn't able to post in the last few months, apart from the fact that I didn't have much time to edit, was because I was going through a lot in terms of balancing my work life and my family life and also my health. So this was also the season where I decided to get rid of all four of my wisdom teeth. I have been getting fevers lately, and they've been random fevers. I don't know if they are stress fevers. I don't even know if stress fevers is a thing. Like, it depends on which doctor you speak to. Some say, yeah, stress fevers are a thing. Some say that while you're stressed, your body's immunity drops down, and any underlying infection or any chronic infection that you have ends up flaring up a little more. I got a full autoimmune disease panel test done, and everything came out clear. And I suspected maybe, just maybe, this prolonged fever it was a low-grade fever, but it was quite a chronic fever. And I thought maybe there's something off with my wisdom teeth, because that's what ChatGPT said. And of course, I listened to ChatGPT and decided to get rid of all four of my wisdom teeth. Now, why all four? The healing time after each wisdom tooth removal tends to be broadly 7 to 14 days. Depends on the kind of surgery that you get done. Like, for me, the lower teeth had to be surgically removed, which means that they have to cut through the bone and then extract the teeth out. Whereas the upper two were much simpler, it was more like a pull out. Ideally, I wanted to get all four done together. But then I was concerned that because all four can be a bit of a complicated process, and with my schedule, you never know if I get that window of healing time. There was a high likelihood that I would have to cancel. So right before Christmas, I decided to get the upper two wisdom teeth removed. And that meant that my majority of the holiday season was spent talking like this. You probably can't notice how I'm talking, but I can't open my mouth. So if I want to have a banana, I will not be able to have it. I can't open my mouth wide enough. It's been rough. Even laughing, yawning hurts. And that's mostly because my jaw is all cramped up. But I decided to get my upper wisdom teeth removed right about 3 days before we had to start hosting people for Christmas. And then it just led into the New Year's plan, and somehow that recovery, which is actually supposed to be just about 4-5 days, ended up being slightly longer for me, not because of the tooth itself, but because of the jaw pain. And then recovered from it, and immediately after, I scheduled a surgery for my lower teeth. And this time, it was rough. So I ended up getting a condition called dry socket. It has nothing to do with how my teeth were removed. There are certain things that can make you predisposed to a dry socket. Basically, your body is supposed to form a clot right after the tooth is extracted, such that the bone and the nerves that are lying underneath are not exposed to the elements, and the tissue, which has to sort of form above them, can form peacefully without causing you too much pain. For me, what ended up happening was the blood clot that was supposed to form right after the wisdom tooth removal ended up not forming. Like, it ended up forming, and I think it was either because I pulled the gauze out a certain way, or it just didn't form properly. Because of some reason, it didn't form. And I ended up with a condition called dry socket. And I have to tell you, it's the worst pain I've experienced in my life. And I thought and you know how I am. I keep gaslighting myself that, you know what, I'm the problem. Maybe the tooth is completely fine and I'm the one who just cannot tolerate pain. But I usually have a very high pain tolerance. So this was surprising to me. So I decided to go on, of course, Reddit, asking for opinions of people who have had this condition before. And I actually found there's an entire flare dedicated to dry sockets. And people have described the worst kind of pains. Oh god, the pain was so excruciating. Like, it was not survivable. I was on some heavy painkillers. My doctor had prescribed me Enzoflam, and I was taking 3 a day, but somehow the last 3 hours before my Enzoflam would wear off would be excruciating, and I wasn't allowed to take more because then it's not good for your body. And my doctor was great. My surgery, I think, was great as well. There was no pain. The pain actually started on day 3, and it just killed me. So the reason why I'm talking about this right now is because more likely than not, you all might be experiencing wisdom teeth at some point in your life. I mean, I hope not. Like, you might have wisdom teeth that grow perfectly and then they never bother you. And I wish that for you. But if at all any of you end up experiencing a situation where you have to get your wisdom teeth removed, just look up what a dry socket is before you get into it, because there's a list of precautions that you can take to avoid the dry socket. Like, another thing that I noticed while I was going through the subreddit was that people were losing a lot of weight while they were waiting for this dry socket to heal, and that was partially because they were not able to eat. And I realized that Indian food comes really handy when it comes to a wisdom tooth removal, because what I ate consistently was different kinds of boiled dals and rice blended separately so that I had the liquid version of dal chawal. I was definitely meeting all my nutrition goals, and I was also not missing food. Honestly, I kind of like it. Like, it's like baby food, and I'm actually wondering if I want to stick to something like this or like simplify my diet a little more, because I feel like right now it's very elaborate. And I enjoyed the simplicity of this. But what I did not enjoy was the pain. And honestly, right now I still am in pain. So one of my dry sockets is very mild, and that one is tolerable. It gives me headaches, but it's more or less okay. I am on day 9. Yeah, I'm on day 9. And from what I've heard, by day 11, 12, people start experiencing a lot more comfort. For me, I woke up in a lot of pain today, in spite of my left side being stuffed with a certain dressing that is supposed to reduce your dry socket pain from 8 on 10 or like 9 on 10 to straight away 2 on 10 or even 1 on 10 in my case. But it's a temporary solution, and it only blocks the pain while that packing is in there. It's a medicated packing that the dentist puts inside, and it contains some eugenol and a mix of other things. So basically, if your mom tells you to chew on long when you have a toothache, then definitely do that. But don't do that too much, because it can harm your gums. There's so much research about it. If you ever face these kind of issues, just comment and I will address them if at all you need to ask me about it. But honestly, you can just Google a lot of that information, so I don't really need to be an expert over here. But I'm just sharing my experience so that you are warned if you ever get into a wisdom tooth surgery like that. Like, make sure that you have this whole system of boiled dal and chawal and a blender handy, and make sure that you are not doing the things that I probably did, which caused me a dry socket, which could be even taking certain medications that come in the way of clotting, like certain supplements that I was taking, which came in the way of clotting. I think my omega oil supplements kind of came in the way. Funnily enough, I like to have haldi ginger doodh, and I think both of these herbs kind of come in the way. So, like, there were things that I should have probably avoided in the week prior to getting my surgery done, which I didn't. As well as after your surgery, the way you remove or when you remove the gauze is kind of important as well. I still had gauze in my mouth when I ended up taking my painkiller in a liquid form, and I think I may have created some negative pressure, which sort of popped the clot out. And negative pressure, again, a bad idea. Do not drink from straws. Basically, just do an extensive research, because there's only a limited amount that your dentist would also be able to sort of handhold you through it. Like, it's better to be over prepared. I had all the instructions, but somehow They're very tiny, they're just tiny things that you end up doing which end up contributing to this. Sometimes there are things that aren't even in your control. They could just be the default wiring of how your body functions. Even for women, in fact, dry sockets are more common in women than in men because of how our hormonal cycles are. So apparently, if you're on birth control pills, you have a higher likelihood of getting a dry socket. And I had no idea. The other stuff, like what stage of your cycle are you on, I'm not too sure about it. Do your own research. If you start feeling extreme pain, which actually increases rather than decreasing at day 3 or between day 3 to day 7, high likelihood of a dry socket, go to your doctor, especially if it's the kind of pain that radiates from your mouth all the way to your bone. God, I can't even tell you how bad it was. I couldn't sit. I would get up from my bed and just start walking. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't work. I couldn't think. I couldn't talk to people. It was just madness, and it immediately got resolved the moment my doctor packed it with some medication. I'm going to repack it once more, and then hopefully in about 5-10 days this would be very comfortable. Again, I was doom scrolling on Reddit and I found that people find it useful to apply honey on that side of the mouth. And I found it a little strange, but I was like, anything is worth trying if you have pain like this. So I ended up actually drinking 4 spoons full of honey slowly while ensuring that side of my mouth is fully covered. I wouldn't recommend that. Those 4 spoons were actually just for the taste. I was also very hungry in the morning now that I had woken up. But you probably want to take a little bit of honey and make sure that it kind of gets into the socket or just touches the socket. And even though it's sugar and it's counterintuitive, because like sugar is supposed to, like, you're supposed to keep the socket clean, free from food, and it should not flare up and stuff like that. But if you do this for a little bit and then you sort of wash it off later, it is supposed to help with tissue healing. In fact, you can look it up. There was some 2021 research that I found, but there are a lot of researchers out there that talk about how Manuka honey, or I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but honey just helps with tissue regeneration. Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about it because one, it consumed such a major part of my life. I feel like it had to be a core part of my life update. There are a few other updates. Some are related to work. Some are related to work-related burnout that I experienced recently, partially because I was undergoing so much. Okay, hi. Sorry, my battery had died. Yeah, I had experienced such a burnout in the last few months because I was just pulling myself through while my health was not cooperating with me. I had that prolonged fever that I told you about, because of which I got all these extractions done. Hopefully, my fever is resolved now. I will only know as time goes by because I need to wait for all of this inflammation and everything to settle. I definitely know that overworking was causing me a lot of stress, and that was probably triggering a feverish state. I also had a few weddings that I attended and wedding related events like engagements, all that kind of stuff. I went to Kenya on a safari with my family, husband side of the family. It was an engagement in Kenya, so we just made a trip out of it after the engagement. And of course, that was the standard stuff that you see in a safari. That was a lot of fun. But I do, every trip that I make, like say if it's 7 days off from Bombay, I start feeling a little restless about what am I doing in life? I'm not working and stuff like that. And that's also one of the reasons why I keep getting drawn to just chronicling my life, because I feel like life is moving so fast and I hope I'll be able to capture it. Each year just passes by, and look at us, we're in 2026 now. It's been more than a year since this channel had started. Wow, it's been 11 years since Miss India had happened, and I came in the world of, I guess, a public-facing role for the first time. So it's been wild. There are certain nuances on my career front as well, and those are things I'll probably update you about as they unfold. I think I'm still settling a few strings here and there, but I'll keep you posted. And I love you, and I'll see you soon, and much sooner this time, hopefully.